The 2021 Atlanta Falcons schedule breakdown is here. I'm your host, Dalton Miller, joined as always by my co-host, Ian Cummings, and we're going to get right into it. The toughest game on the Falcons schedule in 2021, they have to play the defending champs twice, and the first one is going to be at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That has got to be the most difficult game of the season for them, right, Ian?
Yeah, no, there's nothing else to say, right? I mean, seriously, like I was just gonna okay, well, I'll bring it back to you, right? No, but at Tampa Bay, and it kind of sucks too because they play the Eagles in Week 1, which I think those teams are definitely a little more comparable, but it's not really a good ramp up, The Eagles, okay, we can handle this. Oh, the Buccaneers, oh, well, okay, where'd that come from, right? It just kind of out of nowhere, but those two teams are on kind of different planes, and I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are. Obviously, they were the best team in football last year. They won the Super Bowl. They brought basically everyone back. So they have a lot of those pieces that contributed to that campaign. And the Falcons are kind of on the other end of the spectrum. They made the Super Bowl a few years ago, and it felt like they were kind of clinging to that era. And now they finally pivoted from that. So I think that, and especially after the Julio Jones trade, I feel like that was kind of the marking event of, all right, the Falcons are definitely moving on, definitely trying to put their right foot forward in this next era. Because, hey, let's face it, they got to the pinnacle, they couldn't get it done, and now they got to work their way back because they're not just going to get there again. It's not going to be that simple. And so I look at this team kind of at the start of a multi-year rebuild. And they're just not quite where they need to be to compete with the Buccaneers. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and if I'm going to go outside of the division, I think that the most difficult game on the schedule was probably at the Bills in Week 17. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily going to be a game that matters for the Atlanta Falcons. But, at the end of the day, this is a team that is trying to rebuild, and you want to go out and you want to put a good product out on the field no matter what you do. Now, what do you think for you is the game that you're kind of circling on the schedule that you need to watch? Because for me personally, the one that I have scheduled to sit down and watch, I'm going to wake up at, 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday here in the Central Time Zone. I'm going to get my coffee. I'm going to sit down at my desk, and I'm going to turn on the London game against the Jets. We have Sunday morning football away from the West Coast. I am very excited about that football game, mostly because you get to see this team against a very young and what I think is going to be an up and coming New York Jets team with the quarterback, Zach Wilson, with the new head coach in 𝗬𝗢𝗨𝗧, and Joe Douglas, who is putting a good roster and had a very good draft for the New York Jets.
Yeah, that was the game that I picked, and it's fun. It's fun when you kind of it's tough, Atlanta fans. I honestly don't think you're going to be competing for a playoff bid this year. I do think it's going to take a few years, and you might need a new quarterback before that. Honestly, I mean the roster definitely has a little bit of a ways to go. Added a lot of good pieces this offseason, but it is a process. It takes time. That was the way it was before they got to the Super Bowl a few years ago. That's how it's going to be now. But it's fun at the beginning of these rebuilds because you don't have the weight of those playoff implications dictating which games you're going to watch. You can just kind of focus on the storylines. And I do think that the Jets and the Falcons is a good one because, like you said, both of these teams have new regimes, a lot of new pieces. Zach Wilson, obviously very exciting. And then on the Falcons side of the ball, Julio Jones traded. And Kyle Pitts kind of looks like the new focal point for that offense. But then they also have Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage. So a lot of interesting pieces. It's going to be interesting to see how these two teams match up so early because each one, I think it's going to take a couple years at least for them to get back in playoff contention. So this is early, but we'll get an interesting perspective as to how far they've come in such a short time. So that'll be a really fun one to see. If we can pick another one, I think the Carolina Panthers, kind of that same conversation right now. They're not a new regime. Matt Rule was there last year, but you kind of think about it. It is a little bit of a clean slate because you have Sam Darnold. Obviously, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with him in Carolina, but he has Joe Brady on his side. I think that's another one too, where Carolina and Atlanta, two teams in the same division and kind of in the same situation too. Which one has made more progress to this point, and who needs to catch up? I feel like that'll be another very interesting storyline to follow.
And then, what do you think is the most pivotal game on their schedule, or the defining game, because there probably won't be any quote unquote pivotal games on their schedule. What do you think is the defining game on the schedule? I think it's a better way to say it.
I think that like you said, I mean, pivotal, defining, it all playoff implications are big in that. And when you don't have any, it kind of complicates it a little bit. But let's say the Falcons are trying to at least compete. Let's say they're trying to see where they are. Like, hey, we'll use the first few games, get our feet wet, see where we are, where we need to go. I think the game where they're going to finally see that and finally know, like, okay, this is how far we need to go. This is what we're going to use this season, the rest of the season for, to kind of develop and grow. I think the Giants game is a very good marker there because the Giants are a team. It's not a bad team. We've gone over that in videos past. Their defense is good. They really upgraded that receiving core. The only question is, can Joe Judge get the most out of Daniel Jones? Daniel Jones kind of regressed last year. Is he the guy? And he'll be tasked to kind of prove that this year. But I think the Falcons are a team where, you can kind of look at this from both perspectives. The Giants might be looking at this game and saying, this is a game where Daniel Jones can get comfortable, can kind of start to take steps in the right direction. But the Falcons might be looking at this like, hey, if we can at least compete with the Giants, if we can steal a win from the Giants, maybe we're not quite as, in the dumps as everyone thinks we are. So I think this will be a defining game for both teams, for the Giants especially, but also the Falcons. Like, hey, are we good enough to take these guys on, or do we still need a little bit more time?
Yeah, for me, it's the Cowboys game. And it's simply that because this is a revenge game for them. It's a game that they should have won last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, that's the big one, Dallas Cowboys. And it's not like this has playoff implications because it doesn't. They just simply would like to get revenge on a game that they should have not toiled away last season. Atlanta Falcons fans, let us know what you think in the comments. What do you think is the defining game in the season? What do you think is the game that you guys are most excited to watch? And obviously, what do you guys think is the most difficult game in the 2021 NFL season for your Atlanta Falcons?